India, we are talking about the Odisha train tragedy, the triple train tragedy in which 288 people have lost their lives and around 900 have sustained injuries. This happened in Odisha's Balasore last evening, one of India's deadliest rail tragedies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was quick to visit the accident site this afternoon and after that met the injured people at a hospital in Cuttack. But before we go any further, here's what happened. This is a report that puts things in perspective.
Odisha and rest of India is mourning. The nation has lost over 250 people in the worst tragedy in 28 years. A triple train collision rocked Odisha last evening. The tragic incident took the entire nation by shock, and it happened between 6:50 p.m. and 7:10 p.m. on Friday evening. Let's tell you how it all transpired. First things first, the tragedy involved three trains: Bengaluru-Howrah Superfast Express, the Shalimar-Chennai Central Coromandel Express and a goods train. According to officials, the Coromandel Express derailed and rammed into a goods train. The impact was so hard that carriages were lifted high into the air, twisting and then smashing off the tracks. Another carriage had been tossed entirely onto its roof, crushing the passenger section. And within minutes, the Bengaluru-Howrah Superfast Express also crashed into the mangled bogies. The nearby people rushed to the rescue and pulled out as many people as they could.
मैं सोया था उस टाइम, फिर ऑटोमेटिक मेरा नींद जाग गया, फिर देखा ज़्यादा जोर से आवाज़ हुआ, फिर ट्रेन ऐसा जा रहा था तो एक वो जो फैन है ना ऊपर का, वो फैन पकड़ के मैं बैठा था, मेरा सीट ऊपर था। फिर बाद में ट्रेन रुका, उसका बाद हम लोग फिर नीचे आया। उसी टाइम तो कितना आदमी इधर उधर भागता है, इसको बचाओ, वो मेरे को बचाओ, मेरे को थोड़ा मदद करो, ये तो सभी लोग बोलते रहे।
What's to be noted here is the fact that the three-way accident happened on three separate tracks at Bahanaga Bazar station in Balasore district. 17 coaches of the two trains were derailed and severely damaged. Within no time, rescue and relief efforts were rolled out on a war footing. More than 200 ambulances and over 100 medical teams with paramedical staff along with medicines mobilized at the accident site for medical treatment. Union Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw visited the spot and announced ex gratia of 10 lakh rupees for the deceased, 2 lakhs for the seriously injured victims and 50,000 for those who suffered minor injuries. The Prime Minister also announced ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees for the kin of deceased. Taking stock of the situation, Rail Mantri Ashwini Vaishnaw ordered a high-level probe into the matter.
कंपेंसेशन का अमाउंट कल रात में रेलवे की तरफ से डिक्लेयर हो गया था। एक हाई लेवल कमेटी भी ऑलरेडी डिक्लेयर हो गई है जो कि इस पूरे एक्सीडेंट में इंक्वायरी करेगी। कमिश्नर रेल सेफ्टी को भी बुलाया गया है, वो भी इंक्वायरी करेंगे।
Early this afternoon, Prime Minister Modi, after chairing a review meeting in Delhi, went to Balasore, the site of the accident, and understood the situation on the ground. Shortly after, he went to the district hospital in Balasore to meet the injured. This is what he said there.
असह्य वेदना में अनुभव कर रहा हूं और अनेक राज्यों के नागरिक इस यात्रा में कुछ न कुछ उन्होंने गंवाया है। जिन लोगों ने अपना जीवन खोया है, ये बहुत बड़ा दर्दनाक और और वेदना से भी परे मन को विचलित करने वाला जिन परिवारजनों को इंजरी हुई है उनके लिए भी सरकार उनके उत्तम स्वास्थ्य के लिए कोई कोर कसर नहीं छोड़ेगी। जो परिजन हमने खोए हैं वो तो वापस नहीं ले पाएंगे, लेकिन सरकार उनके दुख में, उन परिजनों के दुख में उनके साथ है। सरकार के लिए ये घटना अत्यंत गंभीर है। हर प्रकार की जांच के निर्देश दिए गए हैं और जो भी दोषी पाया जाएगा उसको सख्त से सख्त सजा हो, उसे बख्शा नहीं जाएगा। मैं उड़ीसा सरकार का भी, यहाँ के प्रशासन के सभी अधिकारियों का, जिन्होंने जिस तरह से इस परिस्थिति में अपने पास जो भी संसाधन थे लोगों की मदद करने का प्रयास किया, मैं यहाँ के नागरिकों का भी हृदय से अभिनंदन करता हूँ, क्योंकि उन्होंने इस संकट की घड़ी में चाहे ब्लड डोनेशन का काम हो, चाहे रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में मदद की बात हो, जो भी उनसे बन पड़ता था करने का प्रयास किया है। खास करके इस क्षेत्र के युवकों ने रात भर मेहनत की है। मैं इस क्षेत्र के नागरिकों का भी आदरपूर्वक नमन करता हूं कि उनके सहयोग के कारण ऑपरेशन को तेज गति से आगे बढ़ा पाए। रेलवे ने अपनी पूरी शक्ति, पूरी व्यवस्थाएं रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन में आगे रिलीफ के लिए और जल्द से जल्द ट्रैक रिस्टोर हो, यातायात का काम तेज गति से फिर से आए, इन तीनों दृष्टि से सुविचारित रूप से प्रयास आगे बढ़ाया है। लेकिन एक दुख की घड़ी में मैं आज स्थान पर जाकर के सारी चीजों को देख करके आया हूं। अस्पताल में भी जो घायल नागरिक थे उनसे मैंने बात की है। मेरे पास शब्द नहीं है इस वेदना को प्रकट करने के लिए, लेकिन परमात्मा हम सबको शक्ति दे कि हम जल्द से जल्द इस दुख की घड़ी से निकले। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि हम इन घटनाओं से भी बहुत कुछ सीखेंगे और अपनी व्यवस्थाओं को भी और जितना नागरिकों की रक्षा को प्राथमिकता देते हुए आगे बढ़ाएंगे। दुख की घड़ी है, हम सब प्रार्थना करें इन परिजनों के लिए।
Let's open this up quickly. Subodh Jain, former member, Engineering, Indian Railways Board. Sudhanshu Mani, retired General Manager, Indian Railways. Brigadier Dr. B.K. Thanna, former founder, senior consultant of the NDMA. And also with us is Mr. Anshuman Purohi, survivor, someone who was on board the Coromandel Express. Good evening, gentlemen. We'll be joined by former Railways Minister Dinesh Trivedi shortly. But Anshuman, thank you for your time. I hope all is well with you. Could you quickly tell us how it happened, when it happened?
Yeah, it was around 6:45 to 7 p.m. I was in the first class coach, which is positioned the second last. And around 6:45 or 7 p.m., while I was trying to take a nap, we heard a loud sound, right? And it sounded like an explosion. It sounded like the train hit something really big. It was very loud, very unusual. And then the train started screeching to a halt. It was jerking. It was very violent in the sense people in our coupe were thrown around, and I was pushed back into the wall. lasted for maybe a minute or so. We gathered our senses. I realized that the train would have derailed, but we had not foreseen or thought about the magnitude of the derailment and the damages and the losses that eventually we found out. But at that moment, our priority was for our own safety. So I advised my co-passengers to pick up a very few of their valuables and quickly exit because I was starting to smell something similar to smoke. We ran out. I opened the door, and that's when we see 3 coaches of the Yeshwantpur Express that had derailed and fallen into a ditch, and a sea of people wailing and crying for help and for water. So we then thought that it is best not to think about ourselves, but to tend to the injured. We realized there would have been a few dead, but we did not, again, at that point of time, understand the magnitude of damage that had happened at the front of the Coromandel Express also, right? So we collected water bottles, distributed it to the survivors there. When we ran out of water, we collected water from the washrooms, ran down, tended to the injured, helped carry some of the injured or the dead to a safer place on the tracks. And that was it. And what I saw is probably something that I cannot really describe in words. But then I say that this was a collective wail of humanity crying out in pain.
Well said. I understand the emotions that you're going through, and you must have gone through when tragedy struck. This happened around 7:15 last evening. And please be with us through the show. Subodh Jain, I want to understand from you, it's a very basic question that people want to know. How did the trains collide?
Say, whatever information which I have gathered from various sources, including the news channels, the Coromandel Express was going towards Chennai, and that is called upline. So a freight train which was ahead of the Coromandel Express was taken in the up loop. So when the train went in the up loop, the point was set for the loop line. After the goods train went in the up loop, the point was supposed to be set for the main line, and according to the station master, that point was set for the main line. But Coromandel, when it came, it followed for some strange reason and went in the loop line and hit the goods train from behind. Now you see, there are two things now. The train hits the goods train. Second, the point is not fit for 120 kmph. It is fit only for 30 kmph. So the Coromandel derailed, and because of its high momentum, its coaches kept on moving on the up line, and few coaches capsized and fell on the down line. Now on the down line, already line clear was given to the Howrah Express.
That's right.
Yeshwantpur Howrah Express. I don't know after how many minutes that train came in, and it shoved those coaches which were lying on the down line, and that is the reason for such high casualties. That is what we have gathered from various
Now, Mr.
sources.
Jain, I was speaking to a survivor in the evening, and he had a different story to say, and he was on the next seat with Anshuman Purohi. I think Mr. Purohi was on seat number 2, and I spoke to Mr. Das, Anubhav Das. Anubhav was on seat number 1.
That is not important.
Yeah.
They were in the important is in which coach they were. The coach was which one, from third from engine, fifth from engine, or 11th?
Second last, sir. This was the second last
will have
coach.
a different experience, the passengers.
I understand that, sir. They were in the first class compartment, the second last. Yeah. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that while you are saying that according to things that you've seen and you've gathered, your assessment is that Coromandel Express hit the goods train. Now, Anubhav, and I don't know whether Anshuman will stand by what Anubhav said, they say that the collision with the goods train was a result of the derailment. So the derailment happens first, and then the bogies that fall off, that collides with the goods train. Anshuman, is that correct?
No, it did not seem like that. I'm more aligned with what the gentleman has said. It seems like Coromandel probably took a wrong turn somewhere and hit the goods train, and it is evident from the fact that the engine of the Coromandel Express is on top of the goods wagons. Probably the coaches then derailed, and some of it fell onto the downline, and that's when the Yashwantpur Express engine hit the coaches of the downline. So we did actually see coaches which were very badly damaged. They were crushed. Some seemed like they were almost cut into two. What is interesting though, and again I'm not very sure of this, is the Yashwantpur Express seemed to have moved on. And bear in mind, we were almost the second last coach, right? So the three coaches of Yashwantpur Express that derailed were right opposite our coach, right? And there were 15 coaches between what had happened with the goods train and Coromandel Express and where the coaches of Yashwantpur Express landed.
Okay, now let me introduce Dr. Dinesh Trivedi, former railway minister, needs no introduction. Sir, thank you for your time. Thank you for speaking to Times Now. Good to speak to you. Sir, of the reports that you've seen, what is your assessment?
Well, the first thing, like everybody else, feels very sad today. And right from the Prime Minister, के मन को विचलित करने वाली घटना है. And our heart reaches out to the next of the family who have lost their near and dear ones. And we pray that those who are in the hospital, they come out safely. And the corridors is now clear. Having said that, I think we need to wait for the report to come out. But because this accident to me looks like a very strange, a freak, where three trains get involved. It reminds me of 2010, when I think the name of the train was Ganeshwari Express, which near Kharagpur got derailed and the goods train rammed into it. And the inquiry committee report said their conclusion that it was a sabotage. This is somewhat similar in the sense of the nature of the accident. So all I'm trying to suggest that if this Coromandel train was supposed to be on the main line, and if really went to the loop, and the loco pilot does not have a steering like we have in the car, at will they can change the track, they can't. The tracks are changed remotely. My question is, did somebody fiddle around the electronic track changing system, the electronic locking system? I personally would not get into a conclusion to this, but at the same time, looking at the freakness of the accident, and like it happened in Gyaneshwari, I personally would not rule out a sabotage either. Not coming to a conclusion, but this needs to be looked into also, and our own Honorable Prime Minister mentioned it very clearly that they will go into the depth of the inquiry and किसी को भी बख्शा नहीं जाएगा. I think that assurance people of the country would be absolutely reassured. And knowing a little about Indian Railways, it is now on the track of modernization, safety first. In my budget, I wanted a generational change which I was not allowed to do. But now we are marching ahead. When I wanted 50,000 crore, this government gives 2,50,000 crore for modernization, for safety, for convenience. Safety comes first, and I think that is the angle.
Mr. Trivedi, I'm glad you're talking about the safety, because that's really the priority and something which is at top of people's mind. There is now a debate which is raging about the safety of Indian Railways. Is there a reason to be worried, concerned?
Well, I think we wait for the report. And only after the report, at the moment, we can talk in terms of the circumstances which led to the accident. Nobody can be sure as to what really happened. And what I am suggesting is also based on the circumstances in which this accident happened. So safety as far as Indian Railway is concerned is the priority. As far as sabotage is concerned, it can happen to any place, anywhere in the world, which we all have witnessed in the most modern country in the world. We have seen that. My suggestion is, let's not rule out anything. Let's not conclude anything. Let's wait for the report to come.
Now, Mr. Trivedi, I know you're pressed for time, you have to go. So my final question to you is this, sir. What do you have to say about the political commentary around this accident?
See, I'll take you back to the time of COVID. And political parties had written off India and had, they went overboard saying, Sab khatam ho gaya, Hindustan gaya. But this Prime Minister put his head down with his team. Right from free vaccination to free food. The world is today asking, how did India manage with such a varied population? How did you manage COVID? How did you get the vaccination so soon? Believe me, this Prime Minister will put his head down, and he is already at work as far as this railway accident is concerned. He is not going to sleep without getting into the bottom of the causes of this accident and making sure whoever is behind it, be it sabotage or anything, they will not be spared no matter what, no matter who. So let us wait and have full confidence in the Prime Minister, and there is no time to really undue worry about the safety of Indian Railways. It's a very robust organization with best of the people around.
That's very reassuring to hear. Dinesh Trivedi, former Railway Minister, thank you for speaking to us. We're taking a quick break, viewers, and we'll come back with our panel of guests also. Anshuman Purohi, the survivor, live on Times Now. Stay with us. Thanks for being with us. We are discussing about the Odisha train tragedy. 288 lives lost, over 900 people injured. Some of them said to be in critical condition. The Prime Minister has said that the best medical attention and treatment would be extended to all of them. We have Subodh Jain, former member Engineering Indian Railway Board, Sudhanshu Mani, retired General Manager Indian Railways, and Brigadier Dr. B.K. Khanna, former founder senior consultant of the NDMA, also Anshuman Purohi, the survivor. Now, I started with Mr. Subodh Jain. I want to bring in Sudhanshu Mani. Sir, what is your assessment of what people have said so far? Because there's also a preliminary report submitted by the observers that says that norms were not followed.
You see, there have been many versions through the day, and I have been speaking about it. But now, as I understand from many sources, it seems that the Coromandel Express did enter the loop line, which was occupied by a goods train at very high speed. Now, usually the signaling system would not allow a route to be set to an occupied line. So it is possible, as Mr. Trivedi said, about sabotage, but sabotage of what? Sabotage to let the train enter the wrong route. It is possible by tampering with the signaling system. So I will not readily go to any sabotage theory, but it may be worthwhile to examine if any maintenance work was being done at the station, because at times under pressure of work, some shortcut methods are applied and certain things are bypassed, in which case it is possible to actually give the signal through on the main line, whereas the route is set to the loop line. This would be a matter of inquiry. I won't conjecture beyond that. But the earlier apprehension that perhaps the train derailed at the point or train derailed on the main line first, the Bangalore train and the Coromandel train hit it at a very high speed is perhaps that's not what has happened. Also, what is notable is perhaps the Bangalore Kolkata train entered the station first because it had almost cleared the station and its rear 2-3 coaches only got affected, which means this was almost passing the station through when the mishap with Coromandel started. And when the coaches started scattering all over those 2-3 lines involved, the rear 2-3 coaches of Yashwantpur Kolkata train were hit. Other than that, it's a matter of inquiry. I'll only like to add that it is a massive accident. Commissioner of Rail Safety examines case even when one person dies. This is a huge accident in terms of loss of life. And to remove any perception that the inquiry is not biased in any way, I would strongly recommend that a judicial probe should be ordered in this mishap.
Judicial probe should be ordered is what Mr. Mani thinks. Brigadier Khanna, I want to quickly ask you about the rescue and relief work. Many people, at least on social media, are saying that the rescue effort, the rescue mission launched by the authorities, that was swift. But, sir, as we speak, I'm being told that more and more people of rescue teams are there so that tracks can be cleared quickly. What are the challenges on that front?
Firstly, I'll tell you, in fact, the rescue part. The rescue, who does the first rescue? As I think the first is that the first 1 hour is very, very important. We call it a golden hour. And who is there immediately 1 hour? Not the NDRF, not the SDRF, not the police, not the railway, the relief. So it is basically all those people who have not been injured and with grace, so they have survived. They are the first people, as in fact, the survivor has also said that they got into the rescuing the others also once their own safety was ensured. Second is the people who are around there only. That is people who heard it and they are working somewhere, so, and especially the youth, so they came into the being, and that normally is the tendency also wherever the accident occurs. So the community which is required, so they come in and they that takes initially about 1.5 hours, and it is normally said that in case the person who is injured is taken to a qualified MBBS doctor, 92 to 93% of the chances are that he is going to survive. So that is basically the golden hour, he says. So the immediate rescue, if it is done very methodically, so the lot of the fatalities can be. With that in view only, the next thing comes, that is our community, in fact, aware how to recognize. So no, it is not there, because it's only where, of course, the fault lies here only. That's where, of course, we have to build up the capacity, and that is the NDRF, the team, the SDRF. In the non-disaster period, right, they have been told, okay, you go to the area of responsibility.
But that, Brigadier Sir, will,
and along with the
policy issue, will take time to, build up and scale up the force. I understand that, but because you're talking about the rescue, let's hear it from Anshuman Purohi, the survivor. Anshuman, after you got down from your coach, who were the first responders? I'm sure the locals came in and helped before the police and the other personnel arrived.
In the first few minutes itself, the first few 10 or 15 minutes, it were the survivors from the 3 coaches of Yashwantpur Express, as well as few of us from the Coromandel Express. But soon enough, the word had spread, and the locals came to know, and they immediately jumped in to help. It was a massive help, because they came in numbers, jumped onto the overturned coaches, went inside the bogies, and pulled out the survivors. So hats off to them. I could hear an ambulance siren about 30 or 40 minutes after the incident had happened. But at that point of time, I was a bit impatient as to why the relief workers were not coming to the accident area where I was. Because at that point of time, I had really no visibility to what had happened at the front end of the Coromandel Express. So after about 1 hour, when there was still no sight of relief, the official organizations, I took a walk, and that is when I saw the extent of damage that had happened at the front end. It was just too massive to imagine. There were lots of dead bodies, lots of decapitated bodies, lots of people with their hands and legs missing or broken, lots of blood everywhere. The scale was too vast. And hats off to the organizations, the official organizations that came in. They've done a tremendous job at both at a central as well at a state level.
Okay. Now, Mr. Jain, a lot of people are also talking about, safety reforms in the Indian Railways. And I'm sure you're aware that over the years, we've had several committees, panels who've come up with recommendations. For instance, I have the list here, the Kunzuru Committee in 62, then you had the Vanchu Committee in 68, the Sikri Committee in 78, and then one committee headed by Justice Thanna in 1998. Is it the right thing to say that, we are slipping on the safety reforms front, or this incident should be seen in isolation as an exception?
No, you see, whatever committee reports you are quoting about, they are all succeeded a major accident. So after this accident also, there will be a safety committee. And the safety committee will take about a year to give a report. Some of the recommendations of that report will be implemented. And when things become all right, naturally the people change, the memory fades, and rest of the recommendations will not be implemented. Whatever can be implemented quickly will be implemented. It's not that nothing will happen. After this major accident, I am sure that a committee will be nominated, and the committee will make recommendations. Committee will make such extravagant recommendations which sometimes are not possible to implement within the resources available with the railways. Now things are different. Maybe we get money from the central budget and we may be able to implement, but that is what is my perception.
Okay.
You can't say that nothing was implemented out of these committees.
Okay. I have a few questions on the signaling system, because there's a lot of chatter about it after the accident. We'll talk about it. Taking a short break, viewers. Please stay on with us, because here we are talking about the Odisha train tragedy. And I've told you about the death toll, 288 lives lost and over 900 injured. Relief rescue operations have concluded. Relief is the next mammoth task. Stay with Times Now. The triple train tragedy in Odisha, in Balasore in Odisha, has killed 288 people. Here's a look at some of the most fatal train tragedies over the years.
Balasore train mishap is the deadliest tragic accident in India after 28 years. Over 230 innocent lives have been lost in this heart-wrenching derailment and collision of 3 trains, leaving hundreds of families devastated. This accident also reminds of the past horrors when similar grave train tragedies occurred in the country, leaving many dead. On November 20th, 2016, some 146 people lost their lives and more than 200 injured when an express train derailed in the northern state of Uttar Pradesh. The Indore-Patna Express 19321 derailed near Pokhran, Kanpur at around 3:10 am and around 14 carriages were derailed. On May 23, 2012, the Hubli-Bangalore Hampi Express collided with the goods train near Andhra Pradesh. Following the mishap, 4 coaches derailed and one of them caught fire, killing about 25 passengers and charring several others. 43 people were left injured in the accident. At least 148 passengers of the Mumbai-bound express train died on May 28, 2010 after a few coaches got derailed between Khemashuli and Sardhya stations of Southeastern Railway and toppled on the adjacent tracks. A goods train coming from the opposite direction within a few minutes ploughed through the coaches. More than 200 passengers were injured. Then back on August 20th, 1995, at least 350 people were killed when 2 trains collided 200 kilometers from Delhi. The Firozabad rail disaster occurred at 2:55 am when a passenger train collided with a train that had stopped after hitting a Nilgai. On August 2nd, 1999, the Brahmaputra mail collided with the Awadh Assam Express near Gaisal, Assam. The accident resulted in the deaths of approximately 290 people. The country has witnessed several tragic train accidents over these years that have resulted in significant loss of lives. As India continues to move towards modernizing railways, these incidents continue to raise serious concerns about safety measures on the ground. Bureau Report, Times Now.
Even before the rescue teams could reach the spot, the locals, without even thinking about the dangers of going there at the site, at the accident site, rushed to extend all help after 3 trains collided. Here's a detailed report that tells you about the unsung heroes, the efforts of the first responders.
The triple train tragedy in Odisha's Balasore has claimed over 260 innocent lives and left over 900 people injured. Even before the rescue teams reached the spot, the locals rushed to the spot to help those in distress and trapped in the debris. The efforts by the locals went overnight and they successfully saved many lives.
मैं रेस्क्यू करने के लिए आया था, मैं गया था स्पॉट में गया था, कम से कम 20-15 आदमी को मैं रेस्क्यू किया है और मेरा मिसेज जो है वो एनएसएस से बच्चे को लेके आए हैं, वो फ्रूट्स वगैरह दिए हैं पेशेंट को और अभी दोपहर का लंच जो होगा लंच भी देंगे पेशेंट को और पेशेंट का हालचाल।
आप थे कि जब आवाज आया आपको
5 मिनट के बाद आया, 10 मिनट के बाद आया, आके पहले इसका नीचे से आदमी हम 3 आदमी निकालने में तो जो दूसरा बगी है उसका नीचे से एक तो आदमी पटरी का नीचे है, उसके ऊपर ट्रेन है, हम सोचा तो ये दबा हुआ है, हम बोल रहे नहीं ये दबा हुआ है, उड़िया में बोला, तब वो हिंदी से रिप्लाई दिया नहीं हम फंसा, हमारा पर कुछ फंसा नहीं, आप निकालिए। हम निकाला, जब देखा उसका पाँव पूरा टूटा हुआ था, हाथ जहाँ पे दबाया यह सब पूरा कटा हुआ था, हाथ लगाने से भी हमको पूरा डर लगा, तब भी ला की पटरी तक लाया, उसके बाद धर्जी नहीं मिला हमको, हम वहीं से निकाल आया।
Even Chief Minister Naveen Patnaik lauded the efforts of local residents in carrying out rescue operations at the triple train accident spot.
Extremely tragic train accident. I have to thank the local people, the local teams and others who have worked overnight to save people from the wreckage. Railway safety should always be given the first preference. The people have been taken to hospitals here in Balasore, also in Cuttack, so that they recover as fast as possible.
Various rescue teams involving NDRF, SDRF and other forces were also roped in to retrieve people trapped in the derailed coaches. Huge cranes and bulldozers were brought in to raise the mangled coaches that turned to be a huge heap of steel boxes. Rescue workers wielded gas torches and electric cutters to pull out the dead bodies and hunt for the survivors. About 200 ambulances, 50 buses and 45 mobile health units were working at the accident site, besides 1,200 personnel.
हमारी कल रात से हमारी 6 टीम लगी हुई है यहाँ पर और हमारे डॉग्स भी लगे हुए हैं और हमारी मेडिकल टीम भी लगी हुई है और लगातार हम काम कर रहे हैं। जितना बन सके हम लोग सभी मिलकर काम कर रहे हैं। जितने थे लाइव विक्टिम लगभग हम लोग निकाल लिए हैं और अभी जो भी डेड बॉडीज है उनको हम लोग निकाल रहे हैं। टाइम तो अभी आस्ते आस्ते निकाल रहे हैं, जल्दी तो हो नहीं सकता है देखते हुए कई की मैंगल्ड बॉडीज है, तो इसीलिए अपने आप का सेफ्टी को देखते हुए हमको काम करना है, हो जाएगा जल्दी।
स्थिति तो आप सिविल एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन से पूछिए, हमारे जो बंदे आए हुए थे यहाँ पे सब लगे हुए हैं कल रात से और दोनों एक साथ मिलकर ही काम कर रहे हैं। एंड द डिटेल्स अबाउट कितने क्या कैजुअलिटी हुआ आप उनसे थोड़ा लगातार लगे हुए, कल रात से लगे हुए हैं। टीम तो सारे लगे हुए हैं अपने अपने जगह में जहाँ पे हो रखा है। अभी इनका एग्जैक्टली कहाँ पे किस जगह में लगा है वो थोड़ा आगे जाके देखना पड़ेगा आपको। लगातार है, अभी लगे रहे और भी कॉलम आ रहे हैं कलकत्ता से।
The rescue operation has been completed. Now the restoration work is underway.
अभी साइट से खबर ये आ रही है कि रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन पूरा ख़त्म हो गया है और साइट अब रिस्टोरेशन के लिए रेडी है, तो हम लोग रिस्टोरेशन पार्ट स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं।
The injured have been shifted to the hospital from treatment and union ministers paid visit to the hospital to take stock of the situation. Adequate medical facilities have been ensured so that the injured receive proper treatment.
बम्बई से एक रेल आ रहा था और हम लोग इधर से সারদা সাদরাগাছি শালিমাই থেকে আমরা যাচ্ছিলাম চেন্নাই, ওদিক থেকে বোম্বাই আসছিল, ট্রেনটা খুব গতি ছিল, দুজনের মুখোমুখি হয়ে গেছে। আমাদের ট্রেনের বগি उल्टे पूरे भेगे ट्रेन में ढुकिए दिए।
तो आज घर आने का टाइम कोरोमंडल में 6:40 को ट्रेन पकड़ा बालेश्वर से, ठीक 6:55 का अंदर बाना स्टेशन में ऐसा कुछ आवाज आया तो सोचा क्या, फिर इधर से पलटी हो गया, वो मालूम चला कि ट्रेन एक्सीडेंट हुआ। फिर जब एक्सीडेंट होने के बाद जब वो बॉगी रुका ना, फिर मैं पहले निकला, फिर मेरे साथ जो 3-4 आदमी थे उनको भी रेस्क्यू किया, फिर ऊपर आके मदद किया कि एक आदमी मेरे को पकड़ के नीचे लेके आया, पानी थोड़ा पिलाया, फिर गाड़ी में बैठ के मेडिकल लेके आया। मतलब 200 के आसपास घायल हो चुका है। एम्बुलेंस भी तुरंत आ गए थे और ये फायर स्टेशन भी वो भी लोग इन्फॉर्म किए थे, उन लोग भी आ गए थे।
It's a very unfortunate incident. We are working since last night. We are trying for our students. Many have gone to the site from SCB Medical College. There is a very huge response on youngsters. We have NGOs, we have students who have lined up to donate blood. Hundreds of people, more than 3,000 units of blood collected since last night. Now from Katak Club, we have given food to 1,000 people, 1,000 attendants, and we have donated to the Prime Minister and the Chief Minister's Relief Fund, and now we are trying to donate around 500 units of blood.
Railways Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw has ordered a high-level probe into the accident. He visited the train accident site and said that the main focus is now on rescue and relief operations.
उन सभी परिवारों के साथ मेरी प्रार्थना है जिनके परिवार का मेंबर इस ट्रेजेडी में चले गए, और सभी जहां पर भी बेस्ट पॉसिबल हेल्थ केयर फैसिलिटी होगी, चाहे कटक में, भुवनेश्वर में, एम्स में, इधर कलकत्ता में, कहीं पर भी जो बेस्ट पॉसिबल हेल्थ फैसिलिटी होगी वो दी जाएगी। कंपेंसेशन का अमाउंट कल रात में रेलवे की तरफ से डिक्लेयर हो गया था। एक हाई लेवल कमेटी भी ऑलरेडी डिक्लेयर हो गई है जो कि इस पूरे एक्सीडेंट में इंक्वायरी करेगी। कमिश्नर रेल सेफ्टी को भी बुलाया गया है, वो भी इंक्वायरी करेंगे।
ब्यूरो रिपोर्ट, टाइम्स नाउ।